Today I'm going to show you how to create a weather plugin using nothing but jQuery. Okay, let's get started. So once you have your SDK downloaded and your environment set up, you should be able to see a folder structure similar to this. Plugins is where all your plugin development occurs. If you open it up, you'll see there are a bunch of examples in there that change periodically, and there's a My plugin that is just set up blank there for you to set up your standard Hello World. I will put all my code that I have in here. Let's get familiar with the plugin structure. Every plugin structure is exactly the same. You have control, resources, widget, and plugin.json. Control is everything that you see on the web version that's set up for design, settings, content, things of that nature. Things basically that you see on this side. The widget is basically everything within the app that you'll see. Resources is just a folder used to identify your plugin through a thumbnail, icons, things like that. One caveat here is make sure you don't put any of your dependencies in here. The last piece is the plugin.json, which basically gives us some metadata in JSON format about your plugin. So let's start off just going through what we see here. I'll start off with the content side. So if I open up the control, you'll see content, design, and settings. It's within content. We'll go through designs and settings later. And all I see here is index.html. Within this folder, you can put all the resources that you need: JavaScript, CSS, images, other HTML files, whatever is needed. But in this case, it's extremely simple. So let's go in and take a look at it. So one thing that is a must with all plugins and all HTML files within your plugins is that it must reference buildfire.js. That's pretty much the only requirement needed when developing a plugin. Now what this does is it brings in all the framework that allows you to communicate with the outside environment, whether it's the actual device itself or the core services on the web version. It also imports automatically for you Bootstrap. So as you notice, everything is already Bootstrap styled within this without me actually including Bootstrap. Buildfire.js does that for me. Now, what we're looking at right here is just this section right here. Everything underneath content, not even content, just underneath content. And you'll see that I have location, and it's just basically a label and input box. There's a label in the input box, and then a button to save. Right now, does nothing. If I click on it, does nothing. If I type in here, does nothing. Now let's take a look at the widget side. Now I've gone ahead and put in some code to pull from a third-party open weather API. And basically what I've done here is added in my buildfire.js, which is again mandatory, added in jQuery, and put in some HTML that basically defines this Jumbotron here, puts in some elements that I can swap out later, and some panels here so that I can show you the degrees, the high-low for the day, and if it's cloudy or clear skies. And basically, and so that's this section right here. Then the code executes. Now this is jQuery. Anybody familiar with jQuery, the syntax should be clear to you. This is to illustrate that also you can communicate with outside APIs, not just ones provided to you within Buildfire. So I'm just doing a simple AJAX call to this open API, openweathermap.org, thank you for your API. And basically we're just going out and retrieving the data that is needed here. Once the data's come back, we just use jQuery to populate the name of the location, the description, the degrees, and if it's cloudy or not. So I spared you having to watch me code this in, but I'll go over the code with you very briefly. So the first thing we did was we went over to control content index.html, which holds this code. And basically all we did is said on click call the save function, and our save function basically called buildfire.datastore.save. Now buildfire is a singleton that automatically gets created when you import buildfire.js, which is obviously your local buildfire.js file here. And Datastore is a service that Buildfire provides to allow you to save to our secure data store on our servers that you can then use for saving plugin data and publishing plugin data. So all we did here was said build file, data store, and save, and gave it the object we wanted to save. This is a very simple object. It just has one property called loc for location, and takes the value of location, which is whatever was written in here, and then saves it. This callback function just allows you to know if the save went through correctly or not. So if there's an error, log the error. If it's saved, just log saved. Now the other function that we created is we created a function called load. And basically what that does is when you first load the page, make sure that you go and see if there's any previously saved value and preload it in here. So this is the load function, and it's called immediately on startup. So because we've tried this before, we previously saved San Diego, California, but if we change this to Irvine, California, and hit save, it's saved, and if I refresh, Irvine, California is here. Okay, the next step we want to do is actually take this value and make sure it's loaded here. One thing you want to keep note of is that the control allows you to read and write from the data store, where the app only allows you to read from the data store. Okay, so let's move over to the widget side and see how we got San Diego. When I hit save here and I refresh this to pull up San Diego, how did we tie the two? Now, remember on the content side for the load, we used buildfire.datastore.get. On the widget side, we do the same thing, buildfire.datastore.get. Exactly in the same method, it knows what data to pull. Now, if it found an object, it'll go ahead and call load weather data and pass it along the object's data's location. And this is the same code that I showed you before, wrapped in a function where now you pass it in the city, and the city is added into the query string here, so you can pull that data in. So one last thing we need to tie in here is, if you notice, when I type in here a new value and hit save, I have to refresh the page before the app side, the widget side, actually reflects what was typed in. So to tie that in as I save, for this to automatically get notified that there was a change made, all we have to do is come down here and then add in buildfire.datastore.onUpdate. OnUpdate is a handler that allows you to handle the event of the control side updating the value and now telling you, here is the new object that you've received. So here you receive the object again. You call the same load weather data and pass it the new value here. So now if I come in here and type in London and hit save, automatically you see it change without me having to refresh. If I come back here and I type in Irvine and hit save, automatically it shows. So as you can see here, the Buildfire.js framework takes care of a lot of the tedious work of storing and retrieving your data, from the server-side code to handling it and so forth. You should be able to make your plugins extremely responsive. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll leave all this code on GitHub. Find the link below.